So think about this. When an employee comes into that setting, what do they think in their mind? There's only a couple paths they can be on here, right? What are they thinking in their mind as they're getting ready for the annual review? What's it usually tied to? We missed that one element. What's an annual review usually tied to? Other than just you're fired or you're still here, right? What usually also goes into those annual reviews? Compensation discussions, right? That's critical to remember that, right? So this employee now is coming into an annual review, maybe semi-annual, maybe you went to twice a year, right? Not the monthly thing, that's something different, right? The annual review, what are they thinking as they go into it? There's only a couple options here, so what could they be? So here comes Bob, and he's got his annual review next month. He's thinking, I got my review next month. So first of all, for the month leading up to the review, what's Bob doing? Oh man, he's nailing it, right? I'm here early. Can I help you get your coffee there, Mr. Johnson, right? You know right? You've seen this, right? So first we have that going on, right? But what's Bob thinking as he approaches now that review in that moment? What's going on in his head? Give me some of the thoughts.
I think he just doesn't know what's going to be coming.
Okay, maybe a little worry, a little fear, right? He might know that he had some issues in the background. He's thinking, I hope that doesn't come up to bite me, right? Okay. What? Oh, go ahead.
I would say a lot of times, nobody really knows what good performance looks like. So from the very beginning, some of the managers don't even know what is good. You know, how can you analyze it if you don't know what good performance is? What does it look like? And then if we start in the beginning, say, good performance will be, and then things like attendance or making sales goals or whatever you want to put in there. But I think you have to start from the beginning to figure out what good performance looks like.
It was Beth, right?
Yes.
Beth, that was so good it gets a poster. I deliberately put it at a different level. Just want to start to talk about what are the things around the employees. If that's the heart of what we do, what are these elements, right? And this whole idea of job performance, I think, is a big one, because that's what I think leads a little bit to this idea of, is this going to be a good moment? Maybe I filled out my own sheet and I'm thinking, well, I can't give myself all 5, so I'll make that one a 3, what, you get the idea, right? We've probably all been the receiver of a review, if you follow me. As an employee, we got to do our own review type of things, right? So those are the thoughts going through your head, right? What is real job performance? I think that is a bit of a mystery, and that's part of what I want to, kind of help us with, is to say it's more of a science sometimes than we think, and we sometimes make it harder on ourselves for this one, not just the hiring and firing part, right? But I think sometimes we make this a little harder on ourselves than it could be.
And I think if you don't know that up front, you don't have a good job description, you can't do a good hire, so you don't even know, you don't know what the key performance indicators are, what's the purpose of the position. You can never hire the right person if you don't know what.
We'll talk about that before we part today. But one of the things I want to talk about, though, is this job performance, I think, is one of this black hole of the HR world, right? How do we use that properly to then bring people along? So let's get back to the review, okay? Coming in the review, I think that's pretty accurate to say a lot of times they come into a review and they don't know what's going to happen, but is it fair to also say they're hoping for the best? Does that sound right?
But I don't think anybody should ever go into a review being like, I don't know what's going to happen. After a year, you don't know.
Well,
I would say it depends on their leader. Yeah. If you've got a good leader, you shouldn't have any surprises. They should be talking to you the whole year through. Then the monthly stuff you're talking about is really good. I like that. But
let's go down this path real quick, since we're on this wavelength, right? Let me bring it around there. Now, I'm going to suggest to you, there's a chapter in the book all about it, but I'm going to suggest you start to really think about this. Disconnect, this is where I was going to go with this, right? Disconnect the performance review and I'll call it the accountability review. Disconnect them. Have your annual or semi-annual accountability review. Bob, here are the KPIs. We'll bring that back up, right? Here are the KPIs for your job. Here you go. Objectively now, not subjectively, but objectively, I now know what job performance looks like and doesn't look like. And, if you have been tracking through the year, this shouldn't surprise you, right? Your job performance is not up to where we need it. Here's our action plan. That's what an annual review should look like, and some of you are doing that today. with I would argue, more subjective data, though, than you would probably prefer, right? You'd like to have more objective data than subject, right? Facts versus feelings and opinions, right? But most reviews are done based on feelings and opinions and, you know, what's happened in the last 2 months, right? But if you begin to split out performance from accountability, and performance then sounds a lot like what you're doing right now, right? Hey, what's going on? How you doing your job? And as we go through the year, we're looking at what does good job performance look like, and we're identifying where the variance is. And I like to use the phrase, actually, you'll see it on the little poster. Pick one and get it done. In other words, I'll decode this now for you real quick. It's also up there on the chart, but well, that's a little far away to look at, so. Probably should tell you what page it's on in the book so you can look at it more easily. Sorry about that. Or I could put up a slide. Think of it as there are business results that the company wants to achieve, and for whatever those results are, the main thing I'd like to point out, and then we'll talk about it, is there's a connection between what the business is trying to achieve and the job tasks that people do. That's the real connection I want to make, right? In other words, think of it as in the HR world, we tend to do a lot of work with job descriptions. Okay? In the business world, I won't put was it Steve? I won't put you on the spot, but if you're comfortable fielding this question as our representative business owner, right?
You might be sorry, yes.
I want to suggest that the typical business unit manager does not think of and live in the world of job descriptions and their KPIs. I think they live in a different world, right? Through the 80s and into the 90s, I got tasked with, in the company I was at the time, they were a durable goods manufacturer was the label they used for themselves. They built houses, right? But they adopted the total quality management philosophy, which I actually am quite a fan of, right? But what's at the heart of total quality management? Does anybody want to take a guess or give your opinion on what you would say is the hallmark of that?
Is that when we had these statistical quality?
Statistical
charts,
process
and you
control.
measured limits, and you measured to make sure you stayed within your limits, and when a process went out of control, you could visually see it and then try and figure out what to do to get it back in
Sound familiar? Some of you are living in this world today. I'm sure you have some of this going on in the manufacturing world. You did some manufacturing as well. I'm sure you have some of this. It might go by a different name today, but that's what I'm talking about, right? And I would say at the heart of it was process orientation, right? Here are the steps that result in these deliverables. I think that's more the world of the people that run businesses, right? Here's what we have to do to achieve the products that we sell. Now, for them to know what they need to do, right? Most companies have said, you know, here are the processes involved in this department, right? They'll break it down and say, here's the smelting process, right? Or whatever it is that you label it in the powdering, what'd you call that? Powder coating, in the powder coating field, right? They know the process to coat something, right? It goes through certain steps or tasks, right? And day in and day out, they will measure those tasks for variance, I think a lot of times, right? We accomplished it within plus or minus this requirement. Sound familiar? I know you have it in your world, right? So a lot of this process orientation, I think, is how we run our businesses today. And here's my suggestion. I would say there's a direct leveraging of what we do in HR with what happens in the business community through that connecting point of the job tasks, right? I can go one more step and say, one of the things we'll talk about is developing training and learning and all that stuff. I would suggest your learning outcomes could be and should be the job task that you're trying to equip. That